Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you are watching this. I'm Reverend Dr. Anthony Farmer, and welcome to another offering of the Lion's Den, a sacred space for men who are experiencing grief. Again, I'm Reverend Dr. Anthony Farmer, and on social media, I think I'm known as Rev Bear. I'm known as Rev Bear, certified grief to gratitude coach through the Institute of Professional Grief Coaching, certified spiritual life coach, as well as an ordained interfaith minister. And I am divinely guided to offer the Lion's Den. And the Lion's Den is a safe and sacred space for men who are experiencing grief. And grief is the emotional, physical, energetic, mental, and spiritual reaction or response to loss of a loved one, loss of a life situation, loss of a relationship, loss of a pet, or loss of a way of being in the world. I understand and relate to grief as love that doesn't know where to go. When we love someone or love something and love a situation and they're part of our life, and all of a sudden they are no longer there as they were, that was love that we were extending out to them. And now love is saying, where do I go? Who do I go to? And that loss and that love being misdirected is what we experience as grief. Again, the emotional and mental and physical and spiritual reaction to that loss. And so the Lion's Den is a way for us to reconnect to our courage, our inner strength, our power, our self-compassion, our harmony, our grace, our inner wisdom, and other qualities that we can use to navigate through the grief journey, to navigate through our life with grief. Because grief doesn't go away, because we always miss the people. We always miss them. And so when we miss them, we have either reaction or response, and that is the grief. So it never goes away, but we can learn to navigate grief or not let grief be the one driving our life, and thus the Lion's Den. So we invite men who are experiencing grief to come to the Lion's Den and be open and present to what is being offered. There's always a nugget, an insight, something that they can take from these experiences that can support them as they navigate through the grief. I give thanks for being able to do this. And I also say there is always at least one person who's ready to hear and receive what is being offered today. So today's offering is entitled, "The Way Through Grief is One Step and One Breath at a Time." How long do I have to grieve? When does it end? What is the fastest way to get over grief? What is the best way through getting through grief? What is the easiest way to get through grief? Are there any shortcuts or ways to minimize the hurt? These are a few of the questions that many people have when they find themselves in grief, or they find themselves having that emotional and mental response or reaction when they experience loss. What is this grief, and how long do I have to go through it, and when is it over? And these are questions not just that men have, but everyone has them. And recently I read an article on grieving. It was written by a man who talks about men going through grief. And he said that grief is not a choice. We don't have a choice to grieve or not to grieve. It's a natural experience. What we get to choose is how we navigate, how we hold, how we travel through the grief. And the other thing that we have to learn or choose to learn is we grieve. How am I grieving? Because sometimes we can get in, speak for myself, a state of denial and think everything's fine. But then when I sit with it, I realize some things are different. Something is going on. And it may be how I am navigating through grief by denying that something is that I am grieving. But the other article, another article by a male author, a male psychologist, he spoke about his experience through grief. And an excerpt from his article is, more than anything, I discovered that I needed the strength and courage and permission to grieve. The macho code of posing and posturing as strong and self-reliant would have been a formula for disaster for me. Hiding, denying, repressing my emotions would have prolonged my pain and deepened my sense of isolation. Distancing myself from my feelings and shooting the messenger when sorrow surfaced would have disconnected me from my humanity and thwarted my grieving process. I needed to feel the hurt, the helplessness, the despair, the brokenness, the outrage, and confusion. I began to process and work through these feelings, learn self-compassion, and become stronger in the broken pieces. This is his words from his experience. And again, we grieve because we loved someone, not loved someone because we still love them. And that love is looking for some place to go. Its old destination is no longer there. We grieve because we miss them, or miss the situation or the circumstances, or the certain aspects of our life. Our life has shifted because this person or thing is no longer there. We miss them in our lives. And because we miss them, that is the grieving process. And I may have shared this in previous offerings, but here's a reminder. It's a reminder for me, and it's a reminder for others. A way through grief, a way to walk with grief, a way to navigate the grief journey is one step and one breath at a time. There are many ways to grieve. People grieve differently. People have different levels of awareness of the grief that they're experiencing. However, one step and one breath at a time is something everyone can use, no matter where they are in their grief journey. There's a belief that men and women process, express, and deal with their emotions differently, and therefore they grieve differently. And I'm always careful about this statement because not all women grieve the same way, not all men grieve the same way. And so I'm always careful about all men, all women, and all of any societal groups. We don't all grieve the same way. You can have two men who are experiencing grief, two men who may be missing, two brothers who may be missing the death of their father or their mother or another sibling, and they're going to go through that grief process differently, depending on where they are, in knowing who they are and how they deal with their own emotions. But even so, they may experience grief differently. Both can move through their particular process, one step and one breath at a time. How people, and specifically men, were raised, how we were culturally, ethnically, and religiously raised, the environment in which we were raised, the household that we were raised, our cultural norms can and will have an impact on how we navigate through grief. But even with that, one step, one breath at a time is a process that will work. Moving forward one step, one breath at a time works, and it can help all of us. We can have a support system around us, or we could be the type of person who normally tries to deal with the heaviness of life on our own. Yet, one step and one breath at a time is a sound strategy. We decide how big or how little that step is. We decide how deep or how shallow our breath is. We get to choose our one step and one breath. We get to choose how we navigate and engage in our grieving process. And the one step and the one breath at a time will help. Whether today I am fully engaged in my grieving process, or in the next couple of hours I decide I'm going to deny that I'm in grief, just for a moment, because denial is a strategy. We don't want to stay in denial, but sometimes denial may get you through the next moment. So whether I am fully engaged in what I'm feeling, or I choose to suppress it for a moment, one breath, one step at a time. One breath, one step at a time. It gets me through the moment. And so I may be in a state of denial, or I don't want to feel what I'm feeling, or I want to numb myself or distract myself. Even with that as an option and a choice, I do that one breath, one step at a time. Because that one breath, or that one step and that one breath, will get me to the next moment where I can, engage in the feelings. Couldn't do it a few seconds ago. Couldn't do it a few moments ago. Couldn't do it an hour ago. But that one step, one breath at a time, gets me to a point where I can. One step, one breath at a time. When we have those days when the memory of that loved one, the memory of that person who's no longer here, brings a smile to our heart and a smile to our face. And we can still navigate with that one step, one breath at a time. One step, and I decide how big of a step I want to take. One breath, and I get to decide how deep or shallow that breath is. But it is a good strategy to support me walking with the grief. As I previously shared what the author wrote about his experience with grief, he said, more than anything, I discovered I needed strength and courage and permission to grieve. The macho code of posing and posturing as strong and self-reliant would have been a formula for disaster for me. Hiding and denying and repressing my emotions would have prolonged my pain and deepened my sense of isolation. Distancing myself from my feelings and shooting the messenger when sorrow surfaced would have disconnected me from my own humanity and throttled my grieving process. I needed to feel the hurt, the helplessness, the despair, the brokenness, the outrage, and the confusion, and to begin to process and work through these feelings. Learn self-compassion, become stronger in the broken pieces, and then I add to it one step and one breath at a time. So I offer this statement of empowerment or personal affirmation. I process the grief. I navigate the grief journey. I honor my life one step and one breath at a time. One step and one breath at a time. That is our offering today in the Lion's Den, Sacred Space for Men, engaging in grief. And I look forward to the next offering, and keep my fingers crossed, an announcement about the Lion's Den, sort of the next steps. I'm being guided to keep it going and take it further. So look forward to the next offering of the Lion's Den. Again, this is Reverend Dr. Anthony Farmer.